ReefBum is sponsored by Polo Reef, Champion Lighting and Supply, and Polyp Lab. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So it's been a while since I've done an update on the Peninsula tank. It's been about 5 months since I added back frags to this tank, so I had a clean slate. It was just all rock and a few LPS in the tank, but 5 months ago I put in some very large frags in the tank that I had been growing out in my frag tanks. So I wanted to do an update. Things are looking great. Tank is doing really well. I had some low phosphates for a little while and lost some colors on the SPS, but things have rebounded very nicely. Versus the last time I started this tank a few years ago, I've put more SPS on the bare bottom of this tank, and those corals are doing just great. They're getting enough light and flow. It's only a 20-inch tall tank, so I really wanted to kind of put as many acros in this tank as possible, and I wanted to be careful not to cram too many together on the rocks, so that's why I put a bunch on the bottom of the tank, and so far so good. Certain corals are just thriving on the bottom, and I'll get into some specifics. I just want to go over some of the things, the highlights in terms of corals and what I've seen since I put them in the tank 5 months ago. So with that, let's get into it. All right, this is one of my favorite corals, the BC Joker 2.0. It's always been a fast grower for me, and in fact I had a really large colony of it here in the Peninsula tank. So this one particular frag that I put in 5 months ago has probably grown among one of the fastest rates. Just love it, great colors, just super bright yellow neon tips. This is an ACI pink panther coral that I got from Chris Meckley at ACI. I've put this one on the bottom of the tank, and you can kind of see it puddling out at the bottom there, but it's grown really well on the bottom of the tank, probably getting around 350 par, but still holding its very pink color. So this has been a real good success story for me in the tank thus far. I don't know the name of this tabling acro. I did have it in the Peninsula tank before, but I saved a couple of frags, put a frag back in, and it's just super pink. It's got those green polyps on the inside of the coral itself. Great contrast in colors, and super happy that it's thriving in the tank. This is another really fast grower. It's also on the bottom of the tank here. It was sold to me, well, it was originally thought to be an ORA pearlberry. It is not the ORA pearlberry. It is something else, another iteration. It is another coral that just grows really fast for me. I had a big colony in this tank prior to me doing the whole big reset, so even on the bottom it's growing fast, but this thing just freaking glows. Tyree Icefire Echinata. I've had this coral for a very long time. It's grown into a nice little mini colony here. Ever since I started elevating my fluoride levels, blues on certain of my acros have really popped, and especially on this coral. This is one of my favorite millies. It is a Reef Raft Unknown pink millie tabling acro. I just am a big fan of Millipora, especially the pink. And this one, when it's going right, also has these kind of a greenish coloration to the base of the coral, but just a great Millipora. Another one of my favorite millies in this tank is this Mothra Gigs millie. It's really encrusted well, it's growing fast, and it's got the sickest polyp extension. I really wanted to emphasize millies in this tank, and this is perhaps one of my favorites. I haven't grown it into a huge colony over the years that I've had it, but this is the Palmer's Blue Millie, and I find it to be one of the more finicky millies that I've ever owned. But man, when it's happy and it's growing well, then it's just freaking gorgeous. ACI, Cherry Pie, Millie. I almost lost a colony when I had it originally in this tank. Was able to salvage a few frags, put a nice big chunky frag back in, and once again it is thriving. Upscale's Microcladus. It's been a long time since I've had this coral in one of my display tanks. I've had it in my frag tanks for a very long time. It's a classic coral from Upscales. It's been in the hobby for a while, and as an SPS collector, it has been one of my favorites. It's very unique in terms of the coloration. If you look close enough, it's got these purple polyps on it. It's a really cool coral. Unique Corals Original Strawberry Shortcake. This is one of the first strawberry shortcakes that made it into the hobby from Australia, I believe it came from. I love strawberry shortcakes. They can be a little tough to keep at times, but I've had this particular coral in my collection for a while now, and yeah, it's one of a couple of shortcakes that I have, but I just really love the contrast in colors in terms of the green and the pink and reddish polyps. Super nice. All right, here's one of my few LPS that I have in my tank here, and my Storm, Mocha Storm and Orange Storm clownfish have adopted it as their home. It's a, the Space Invaders Pactinia is just striking in the fluorescence coloration, the green, the orange in the inside of the coral itself. So even though I'm not a big LPS person, this is one that is grabs your attention from across the room. It's that beautiful. This is a Milka Stylo. Once again, I feature a colony in this tank. I just love this coral. Striking. This is another coral that grabs your attention from across the room. It's a centerpiece coral, I think. It really is a centerpiece coral. Even though it's a very common coral in the hobby, I highly recommend it to people that are just getting into SPS. It's a good way to kind of test the waters. Any Stylophora really is a good way to test the waters, but this is such a cool coral. This is another very purple coral. Picked this up from Adam at Battle Corals a number of years ago. Adam calls it the poor man's battle stag. I never had the battle stag, but I just love this coral. At times it could develop these yellow highlights in the tips or within the branches. So it's a fast-growing coral and a beautiful coral at that. All right, side by side near the bottom of the tank, we've got on the right side the TSA Bill Murray, and it's near the bottom of the tank because prior to the breakdown, I had this coral growing near the top of the tank, and it just grew so fast and tabled out so much that it blocked a lot of the corals below it on the one side of this Peninsula tank. So I wanted to put it further down. Not as colorful all the way down, although it is starting to regain some of the coloration that I had when I had it higher up in the tank. But I just feel like it's gonna it's gonna kind of be less of a takeover coral, and having it near the bottom won't shade out other corals. Although it's fast encroaching on the coral to the left, which is the Sanjay's Leprechaun's Beard. This one's at the very bottom of the tank, and this has always been a fast-growing coral for me. I love it. It always tables out, but this is the Sanjay's Leprechaun Beard might be the fastest-growing coral in my tank here, or maybe even in both systems that I have. So it's a really rewarding coral when it's happy. It's growing fast, and it's got some cool coloration as well. The PC Rainbow was another coral that I had near the top of this tank in terms of the top of the rock work, so I wanted to put it lower down, and I think that was a good strategy for this coral because it is really starting to take off, and if it just kind of branches out from its base near the bottom of the tank, it won't do as much shading of other corals like it did the last time. But another old school coral. There's a lot of it's predominantly red, but there's certainly other colors in there, thus the name PC Rainbow. $500 E-Flow. Such a cool looking coral, very unique shape to it. It's been a long time since I've had one of these in one of my display tanks. This particular piece, which was a frag, believe it or not, now it's pretty damn big, was in my 75-gallon frag tank. So it just started taking up a lot of room in that frag tank. I'm like, damn, man, I gotta find some space for this. I wanted a display tank, so I did have a space in the corner of this Peninsula tank, and I put it down there in the bottom of the tank, and it's thriving. It's doing really well, growing fast. Jake Adams, Toxic Florida. This frickin' thing is so fluorescent green. It isn't funny. It's the brightest coral that I have in this tank, and it grows really fast as well. So such a cool piece, and such a pleasure to have this legacy coral from Jake in the tank. Worldwide Corals, Cookie Monster, an Acropora Florida, another Acropora Florida. Super green, awesome purplish violet tips in this coral. It tables out for me. It looks like it's doing the tabling for me once again, but just growing a big colony before, and it's on its way again in this tank. And it looks very similar to this coral, which is the ATL Strawberry Fields. It's a real classic. It's been in the hobby for a long time. So this is a great example of the name game, and how, you know, several corals out there have the same names. These, you know, the marketing gimmick names here. So I think I put them in close proximity of one another, thinking that I would have two different, you know, corals growing out. But damn, they seem to be the same coral to me. But that's okay. I love it so much anyway. Such a cool coral, super red, the TSA Princess Peach. It will also develop green highlights near the base of its branches. But man, this thing just really screams in terms of that red coloration. This is a Reef Gem Blueberry Fantasy. I believe it's a granulosa, but maybe I'm wrong on that. It's very blue and aqua, so it's certainly a very colorful coral. That is another one that will grab your attention. CB Maleficent. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. All I know is this thing is just very freaking red, and it's also growing pretty well for me. It's near the top of the tank here, so it's getting about 500 in terms of the par under these GHL Mitras. But yeah, this is one of my favorites in terms of, I just love red, pink corals, and this one is beaut. This is another coral that I never had in a display tank. It's the BC Aquatic Man table. It's generally kind of a pinkish, orangey color, this table, but there's a lot of different colors if you look close enough. So I love tabling acros, and glad to have this one in the display tank here. Jason Fox Bug Out Stylo. Again, this is another coral that's got a few different names. I've just been attracted to it because it's got that really unique coloration for a stylo. It's kind of blue. There's some neon colors in there. It just really pops, and it grows fast, and I like that. ACI Manila Spy. This coral was not collected by Jake Adams, but I believe he brought it in to the United States. I think that's the story. It's a really cool acropore. Grows really fast, and it's super bright orange. This is the Worldwide Corals Grafted Monty Cap. I put a frag in this tank when I first started it years ago, and the piece had both orange and green in it, but it was predominantly orange. Well, really the orange was the only, you know, color part that grew with this coral, so it just looked like a giant orange cap that I had in this tank. So I was able to find another frag of this coral from Dong at Acro Garden, and I put the frag in this tank, and it's like that both the orange and the green are growing out on this coral. So it's really going to be amazing when it gets even larger than it is. Okay, here's another token LPS coral. The Dunking coral. I've had this coral for a very long time. People that don't know reef tanks get drawn to it because of the movement. I get it, but it is a really cool coral and very hardy coral for me. This is the ACI Crimson, another tabling, pink tabling acro. Grows super fast. This one's at the top of the rock work here, so near the top of the tank. I love it. It's another pink coral, which is something that I am drawn to, and plus it's tabling, so checking 2 boxes for me. Branching green hammer coral, another coral that I've had for a very long time in my collection, and I don't know, I've never had any luck with wall hammers, you know, that are wall hammers. So this branching green hammer has been very resilient for me. Been through a lot, so I've got a couple of pieces in this tank, but glad it's in the tank. Jason Fox Night Stalker. I besides millies and tables, I'm also drawn to tricolor acros. So this is a really cool tricolor, and it's on the bottom doing really well. Another classic, the purple slimer, really fast grower, staghorn. And it's happy in the tank. It's kind of on one end of the tank, but again, it's another coral that adds a nice splash of color. Very, very purple. So that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Until next time, be safe and be well. Later.